The defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good day, all. My name is Jay Wahlberg, a public defense attorney here at the branch.
Lovely to meet you.
We are here today to defend the defendant, Ryoshi, against the charge of kidnapping, felony hit and arrest, and several other alleged offenses. The prosecution claims that my client forcefully acquired an LSPD officer and caused significant bodily injury to another. Throughout this trial, the prosecution will present evidence that they believe supports these charges. However, we will show that the evidence does not substantiate these claims. We will show that the witness statements provided by the LSPD officers on the scene contradict the penal code definition of the charges applied to the defendant. At the end of this trial, it will be clear that the prosecution did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty.
Right, the prosecution may present their case in chief.
Your Honor, the prosecution will begin with Exhibit 1, the arrest report. This document provides a clear narrative of the incident involving Ryoshi on February 9, 2024. The incident narrative reveals that Lieutenant Mike Luigi identified Ryoshi driving with a suspended license. Despite multiple lawful orders for her to exit her vehicle and provide identification, Miss Ryoshi continuously refused, stating, quote, "Left my ID at prison, no guard would give my stuff back," unquote. At this point, according to the arrest report, Lieutenant Cavallera entered the vehicle, sitting in the passenger seat, as Lieutenant Luigi informed Miss Ryoshi that she would be charged with a misdemeanor for driving on a suspended license. It was at this point that, according to the narrative, Miss Ryoshi admitted to having an ID and was once again ordered to exit the vehicle, even locking the vehicle with Lieutenant Cavallera into the passenger seat. Eventually, Miss Ryoshi chose to drive away, striking Detective Hector Mayfield with her vehicle, leading to a high-speed chase and her eventual arrest. The report states that Miss Ryoshi, quote, "continued to speed through the city at excessive rates of speed throughout incorrect lanes and over sidewalks," unquote. Furthermore, the arrest report goes on to describe Miss Ryoshi's continuing to resist arrest, diving out of the vehicle, allowing the vehicle to roll into water, and attempting to run on foot before being tased. Notably, during her apprehension, Miss Ryoshi made a direct threat to Lieutenant Luigi, stating, quote, "When I get out, I'm going to slit your neck open," unquote. That'll be all for Exhibit 1, Your Honor.
That is not good.
Defense may go ahead with their cross.
We'd just like the court to note that the arrest report states, and I quote, Lieutenant E. Cavallera then entered the vehicle, so didn't enter Anna Ryoshi's vehicle, so that she entered the vehicle willingly. That's all, Your Honor.
What the fuck did they just say, bastard?
You want to be arrested, leave the courtroom.
Yep.
Simple request.
I request to rest my balls on your forehead, bastard. Shut up. You are a piece of shit, bastard.
Courtroom, you don't want to escalate it.
Suck my dick, bastard.
Courtroom, you don't want to escalate it.
Shut up, bastard.
Okay, sorry. You're going to be arrested for felony contempt of court.
I am already leaving the courtroom. You.
Nope.
I'm getting. Am I getting charged? Oh, I'm getting charged. Okay, I'm getting charged. You old dirty fat top whore American prostitute bitch bastard pig. You dirty bastard. Get out of my face now, bastard. I will take you all on, bastard. I will take you all on.
I got the power.
Come on then, bastard. Come on then, bastard. I will take you on, bastard. Fuck you and fuck Flog, you dirty bone bastard bitch. You all American
Right,
top bastard.
sit back down, Ronnie. Just sit back down. You'll be fine.
Stupid bastard. Fuck Flog, bastard.
He doesn't mean that.
Fuck Flog, bastard.
doesn't
I do
mean
mean
it,
it.
Ronnie.
I do
Just-
mean it,
Just-
bastard.
just-
Fuck, I do
just-
mean it, bastard. I do mean it. Fuck Flog,
wait,
You're
bastard.
gonna leave the courtroom now.
Flog piece of shit bastard. Flog piece of shit bastard.
So
Ronnie, he doesn't mean it. Shh,
I
don't
will
get in
fuck
trouble,
your mother,
okay?
bastard.
Sorry,
Your mother
Judge. I don't
top
like when
prostitute.
people say bad things about Flog.
Prostitute.
Your Honor, am I good to continue?
No worries, it happens. Yes, the prosecution can continue with their second exhibit.
Next, we present Exhibit 2, the witness statement from Police Lieutenant Elise Cavallera. Lieutenant Cavallera corroborates the arrest report's narrative and provides additional details. She states, quote, "Driver Ryoshi was still in the vehicle while passenger Amelia Adams was already in the clothing store. Lieutenant Luigi began the traffic stop on the vehicle. As Lieutenant Luigi was discussing the location of Ryoshi's ID, I approached the vehicle. As Lieutenant Luigi was discussing the location of Ryoshi's ID, I approached the vehicle, at which at the same time Amelia Adams ran into the vehicle, unlocked it, and tried to get into the vehicle. I squeezed into the vehicle before Amelia Adams, as I knew that the driver would be arrested for operating a vehicle with a suspended license, and with the passenger back in the vehicle, the chance of the suspect evading was even higher." Unquote. Lieutenant Cavallera further explains that when Miss Ryoshi refused to comply with orders to exit the vehicle, she locked the doors and began to drive off, initiating the sequence of events that led to Detective Mayfield being struck and the subsequent high-speed chase. That will be all for Exhibit 2, Your Honor.
Does the defense have anything to say for cross?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like the court to note that Lieutenant Cavallera in her statement stated that she squeezed into the vehicle before Amelia Adams This once again suggests a voluntary action by her to enter the vehicle, and she also stated that she resisted twice when Amelia Adams tried to pull her out of the vehicle, and this shows that she chose to remain in the vehicle when it was inside.
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation. The statement never mentions anything about her remaining in the vehicle of her own accord, only that she squeezed into the vehicle.
That will be sustained. The prosecution
Actually,
can move on.
in the statement, she says that she's resisted twice when she was trying to remove from the vehicle.
The defense is actually right. The previous objection will not be sustained. It will be overturned. And thus, the defense's latest objection will be sustained. Unless the prosecution has anything to add, they can move on to the next.
Moving on to Exhibit 3, Your Honor. The prosecution presents the witness statement from Police Detective Hector Mayfield. Detective Mayfield recounts the moment that he was struck by Miss Ryoshi's vehicle. He states, quote, Lieutenant Luigi attempted to forcibly remove the driver from the driver's seat. The driver resisted this attempt and immediately turned on her vehicle and fled the scene, striking me in the process with her moving vehicle, unquote. He goes on to reference the injuries caused by this incident, stating, quote, After I was struck by the vehicle, I returned on foot to Mission Road to patch up my cuts from being struck and headed off shift, unquote. Detective Mayfield's account provides crucial evidence of Miss Ryoshi's reckless behavior and the direct harm caused to a government employee during her attempt to evade arrest. That will be all for Exhibit 3, Your Honor.
Defense?
I just want the court to note that Mayfield stated that he received only cuts from this incident and he was able to walk back to Mission.
The prosecution can move on.
The prosecution will move on to Exhibit 4. This is the witness statement from Police Lieutenant Mike Luigi, who was directly involved in the arrest. Lieutenant Luigi's witness statement comes in the form of a detailed outline for why each charge is placed on the defendant. The outline continues to provide a clear picture of the events that took place. The statement further supports the charges, providing detailed reasoning for each one. His account confirms the defendant's attempt to deceive officers about the status of their ID, their failure to comply with lawful orders, and their reckless behavior in trying to evade arrest, leading to the injury of an officer. The threats made by the defendant to Lieutenant Luigi further highlight the defendant's alleged disregard for the law and the safety of others during this incident. That will be all for Exhibit 4.
The witness statement from Mike Luigi further confirms that Lieutenant Caviera entered the vehicle on her own accord voluntarily.
Right. The prosecution can present the last exhibit.
Your Honor, Exhibit 5 will be the witness statement from Police Officer 3 Gary Woods. Officer Woods' statement verifies that IRO she was driving with a suspended license, and it supports the initial reason for the traffic stop. The body cam footage showing IRO she's suspended license is proof of this fact. Regarding the reason for Miss Ryoshi's being stopped, Officer Wood states, quote, IRO she has showed me her license after I called Miss Ryoshi by her old name, Bonnie Ryoshi. Upon further inspection of the license that was provided to me, I saw that the driver license of Io was suspended alongside the trucker's license. Miss Ryoshi was found by the unit at the clothing store on Center Street after I had called out over the radio towards all units to be on the lookout for the ETR1 registered to Ryoshi, because if found, she is driving with a suspended license. Unquote. That's all for Exhibit 5, Your Honor.
Yes.
We have nothing for that exhibit, Your Honor.
Right. We will be moving on to closing statements. Prosecution, you may go ahead.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the court, as we come to the conclusion of this trial, it is important to revisit the evidence that has been presented over the course of the proceedings. The prosecution has laid out a clear case that demonstrates beyond a reasonable doubt the guilt of the defendant, Aya Ryoshi, for the crimes with which she has been charged. We began by introducing the arrest report, which documents the sequence of events on the date in question. This report provided a foundational narrative detailing the reckless and unlawful actions of Miss Ryoshi, including driving with a suspended license, failing to comply with law enforcement orders, choosing to drive away from a traffic stop with an unwilling participant in her vehicle, and ultimately striking a government employee with her vehicle. The arrest report is not just a formality, it is a comprehensive account of the defendant's disregard for the law and the safety of others. Further substantiating this account, we presented the witness statements of several law enforcement officers directly involved in the incident. Lieutenant Cavaleri's testimony corroborated the details of the arrest report, offering a first-hand account of the defendant's attempt to evade arrest and the subsequent high-speed chase that endangered numerous lives. Lieutenant Cavaleri's decision to enter the vehicle to prevent Miss Ryoshi's escape speaks volumes about the imminent risk that she had already perceived. Detective Hector Mayfield's statement provided a description of being struck by Miss Ryoshi's vehicle, an act that underscores her disregard for the safety of law enforcement. The injuries he sustained are a direct consequence of the defendant's unlawful actions. Lieutenant Luigi's detailed witness statement further clarified the reasons behind each charge, reinforcing the defendant's failure to comply with lawful orders or attempt to deceive officers, and the threat she made towards law enforcement personnel. His testimony painted a clear picture of the defendant's complete disregard for the authority of the law and the safety of those around her. Lastly, Officer Gary Woods' statement verified the initial cause for the traffic stop, driving with a suspended license. This piece of evidence confirmed that the defendant should not have been behind the wheel in the first place, and this set the stage for the series of actions that followed. Throughout this trial, the defense has attempted to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. However, the evidence presented, including consistent witness statements in the arrest report, leaves no room for reasonable doubt. Ms. Ryoshi's actions were not only unlawful, but also exhibited a blatant disregard for the safety and lives of others, particularly law enforcement. In conclusion, Your Honor, the prosecution asks that the court find the defendant guilty on all counts, delivering a verdict that highlights our state's dedication to keeping the men and women who protect it, as well as our everyday citizens, safe. That'll be all from the prosecution.
Defense?
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution has presented numerous exhibits to this court which they claim support the charges placed on the defendant's record. However, they do not. Let's take a look at each exhibit specifically. First, let's look at the Exhibit 2, the witness statement from Lieutenant Elise Carrera. In this exhibit, Carrera clearly states that she squeezed into the vehicle before Amelia Adams. This indicates a clear, voluntary action by the LSPD officer. She decided on her own, for whatever reason, to enter my client's vehicle, and may I add, without her permission. Furthermore, she stated that she resisted twice when Amelia Adams tried to pull her out of the vehicle. This clearly shows that she chose to remain in the vehicle. These actions by the lieutenant not only show that she willingly, on her own, entered the defendant's vehicle, but she willingly, on her own, remained inside the vehicle. These actions contradict the definition of kidnapping in the penal code, which involves forceful acquisition against someone's will. From this statement, it's clear that Lieutenant Carrera willingly entered the vehicle and willingly stayed inside of the vehicle. Next, we have Exhibit 3, the witness statement from Detective Hector Mayfield. The prosecution alleges that the defendant caused significant bodily harm for the felony hit and run charge. Yet, in Hector Mayfield's own witness statement, he stated that after being struck by the vehicle, I returned on foot to Mission Road to patch up my cut from being struck by the vehicle. He only received minor cuts. These do not signify bodily injury, Additionally, Mayfield was able to walk back to Mission Road and treat himself for these injuries, indicating the minor nature of the injuries themselves. Detective Mayfield's statement also further confirmed the voluntary action by Carrera entering the vehicle. When he states, Lieutenant Carrera entered the passenger seat of the vehicle. He does not say that she was forced, or she did not say that someone forced her into the vehicle. He said that she entered the vehicle. Exhibit 4, the witness statement from Michael Luigi, further supports her defense. Luigi's account does not substantiate serious bodily injuries to Detective Mayfield and confirms the voluntary actions by Lieutenant Carrera. Anna Ryoshi was inside her vehicle while the engine was unlocked. When the engine was off and during the traffic stop, Lieutenant Elise Carrera entered the passenger seat. Carrera willingly entered the vehicle on her own. No one applied any force or forced her to go into the vehicle. She entered on her own. Now, further in this statement, Mike Luigi stated that Anna Ryoshi locked her vehicle during the traffic stop, at which point I warned them not to drive off, emphasizing it would be considered kidnapping of an officer if she did, unquote. While the vehicle was locked, Lieutenant Carrera still had the option to exit the vehicle. She was in a passenger seat of an ETR-1. This vehicle is a two-door vehicle with no back passenger seats, which means there's no child lock. So she had every chance to exit the vehicle during the time from the locking of the vehicle through the argument. From the time that the defendant locked the vehicle through the time that the officer were arguing with her, she had the chance to exit the vehicle, but she did not. The lieutenant decided on her own to remain in the vehicle after this. She put herself in a situation and she was not forced to remain in the car. We'd like to touch on the lack of body cam footage in the exhibit. Officers present on the scene, some admitted to having body cam footage, yet only one officer actually provided footage, but it was from a situation prior. Include police officers, Police Lieutenant 2, Mike Luigi and Elise Carrera, Police Captain 3, Jessica Nash and Jackson Nash. Police Officer 1, Murphy, Police Officer 1, Police Detective 1, to Mayfield. The absence of the crucial evidence further shows doubt in the prosecution's case. Why would you say you have body cam but not provide it? Maybe it shows a different story that is explained in the witness statements. We would never know because it was never presented. Finally, I want to touch on the charge of the evader and officer that the prosecution admitted. The defendant with both VF-01 and VM-03, the violation of the lesser included offense doctrine, as the reckless driving is inherent part of the alleged evasion. Since the act of reckless driving is not separate from the evasion but rather a component of it, imposing both charges unfairly penalizes the defendant twice for the same conduct. Therefore, either VF01 or VM03 should be found not guilty when the judge is deliberating. To close everything off, the prosecution has not provided significant evidence that Aya Ryoshi forcefully acquired Lieutenant Caviera or caused significant bodily injury. The evidence and witness statements presented do not meet the legal standard as outlined in the penal code for kidnapping or felony hit and run.
Oh, sorry.
We respectfully ask that these charges be dismissed and that Anna Ryoshi is found not guilty, as the prosecution has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of these charges. Thank you.
What'd you say? Be the cop, sir.
Prosecution?
Community service.
Your Honor, the prosecution will provide a short second closing statement here just addressing the defense's points. So for Exhibit 2, the defense keeps using the words acquire and remain. Elise, in her, Ms. Cavallera, my apologies, in her witness statement, states that she willingly entered the vehicle. This is not disputed. She willingly entered the vehicle as she was aware that there was likely to be an evasion if she did not do so. However, there is no evidence to support the defense's claim that she remained in the vehicle willingly. Once the vehicle drove away, an ETR is a fairly quick vehicle, and it's been established at this point that she was driving at high speed. Therefore, the officer never had the chance to leave the vehicle. Exhibit 3, the defense claims that the officer's injuries were not serious. I would say that serious is subjective. They were serious enough that he was not able to participate in the following evasion and chase of the suspect due to the injuries.
Objection, Your Honor. Nowhere in the evidence does it state that he was not able to partake in the chase. It just says that he went back to Mission Row after the situation was concluded.
It could be implied since he went back to Mission Row after the situation was concluded and he didn't get to participate
That doesn't
in the
mean that
following
he
chase.
was not a part of the evasion, the alleged evasion and pursuit.
But he clearly wasn't because he was at Mission Row.
In the statement, it said after the situation finished, he headed back to Mission Row, which means after the entire situation was over. It doesn't mean that he was putting at the traffic stop instead of the whole situation as a whole when it finished, when the was arrested.
Your Honor, the bottom line is that injuries were caused by the defendant's vehicle striking the officer. That will be all from the prosecution. Thank you.
I have like just a brief.
Go ahead.
While the lieutenant in the vehicle when they drove off, they still had plenty of time to exit the vehicle before that happened. Resisted the attempts when the second individual at the scene tried to pull them out, and they remained in the vehicle on their own when the defendant locked the vehicle. They had plenty of time between that to leave the vehicle, but they decided not to get out. That's all, Your Honor.
Prosecution?
The prosecution will rest, Your Honor.
Dicko, you gonna try and beat me? I didn't do anything wrong. Mommy, help!
Ronnie, he's just trying to escort you nicely. Like, you could just
Well, he
listen
didn't even
to
say
what he
please.
said.
It wasn't nice, sweet.
Well, could you please get up and follow the...
No, he has to say it. He has to say please. It's called a manners. See, he said please to them and not to me. That's all it takes. It's just manners. Manners make a man, just like the movie Kingsman.
Ooh, Colin Firth, I like it.
Alright, this individual has an active notice of trespass to City Hall.
No, he didn't say please to me, so I don't have to go anywhere. No, I want him to say please.
Ronnie, you did shoot up City Hall last week.
I didn't shoot anything. I wasn't even doing anything
Like,
wrong.
you can leave peacefully, or PD might have to take you. So that's what I'm saying. You can leave and, have your time back to
The
yourself.
second I get out of here, they're just gonna shoot me anyways.
Well, I'm giving you a chance to get out without PD having to step in.
What if I punch that ball dude?
Don't need to punch this ball, dude. No.
No, Ronnie, can we not?
I doesn't hate him.
Where is he? I can't even see. Where's Carol?
He's right in front of us. You
I
can't see the
cannot
big
see
shiny
Clank
bald
in
head.
hell. Can't even see Hope. What's
Ronnie, be
happening?
respectful.
For me,
Right, yeah, let's go.
I hate court.
Why did we have to step in? Why do we have to step
I don't want to leave.
No.
Oh.
Don't punch. Don't punch Carol. Don't punch Carol. I'm gonna give you a warning. Don't punch Carol. Just, Ronnie.
My mama hopes. The doors were locked, and I'm saying bye to my mommy. Shut the
Okay.
fuck up.
So you
Oh
can
my
leave.
God.
Matthew, come back, man. It's not worth it.
Be seated. Given the extended list of charges, presented by the prosecution, the court will be very brief in regards to the considerations for each of the crimes. In regards to the criminal threats misdemeanor, the court has found that the threat to Lieutenant Luigi, documented in the arrest report and corroborated by the multiple witness statements, meet the criteria or definition of criminal threats as ordered in our penal code. The explicit nature of the threat, stating, "When I get out, I'm going to slit your neck open," demonstrates a clear and intentional threat of violence, fulfilling the criteria of the penal code. In regards to the reckless operation of a vehicle, the evidence has established that the defendant drove her vehicle in this manner. The witness accounts and the arrest report detail excessive speeds, erratic driving, and maneuvers that involved even driving over sidewalks, incorrect lanes, and also hitting or impacting a police officer, specifically Detective Mayfield, which allows the court to conclude that the actions fit the definition of reckless operation of a vehicle under the penal code. In regards to the crime of felony hit and run, the court has some special considerations to make. The
God. Yeah, Pete. Match responding. Guys, it's another day in Los Santos.
Right, so as I was saying, crime of felony hit and run is described as causing an accident that resulted in bodily injury or death, and then the penal code presents three circumstances, which are exclusive in the meaning that with just the commission of any of those three, and the first condition, which is bodily injury or death, the crime of felony hit and run would be configured. During deliberation, the court had to ask themselves what constitutes bodily injury. Given the lack of description within the penal code and the law, the court, however, put itself at the task of trying to determine the standard of bodily injury. Is a slap on the wrist bodily injury? Are cuts bodily injury? Is an injury that leads to bleeding bodily injury? These questions have been answered by this court, taking into account the first circumstance that leads to the configuration of this crime. Specifically, Section A of felony hit and run says failing to remain unseen with the victim and rendering aid where possible. With this in mind, and to be brief, not go at it for longer, I believe, or rather the court believes, that for bodily injury to be present, it has to be an injury substantial enough that it requires aid. In this case, it has been proved through multiple sources and recollection of the events that Detective Mayfield may have been damaged and may have suffered cuts. However, he did not require a third party to render aid. He was able to walk himself back to his headquarters. He was not escorted, he was not transported by EMS or the likes. And with that in mind, the court concludes that he did not require aid. And based on the fact that he did not require aid, he did not suffer bodily injury, which is the principal element of the felony hit and run crime. Moving on, the court finds that the actions performed by the defendant constitute resisting arrest, given that she refused to exit the vehicle, she locked the vehicle, and eventually fled from the scene. Furthermore, the defendant obstructed justice by providing false information about her ID status, despite being asked to provide her ID in multiple accounts. This deceitful behavior aimed at hindering the investigation that was taking place through the traffic stop fits the definition of obstruction of justice. Regards to the failure to comply crime, the defendant's repeated failure to comply with the different lawful orders to provide identification and exit the vehicle support the charge. She consistently did not comply with the directives of law enforcement. There's not much need to go deeper in the regard of the operating a vehicle with a suspended license, given that the accounts are pretty clear. and also the admissions made by the defendant throughout the events. It is clear that the defendant evaded an officer, which eventually led to her arrest. And the evasion takes us to the analysis of the last circumstance, which the defense has focused on arguing against, which is the kidnapping of a government employee. Was Lieutenant Elise Cavalera kidnapped? The court considers, or rather we consider, that the lieutenant understood the risk of being trapped in the vehicle. She assumed that there would be a police chase, or rather that the defendant would escape. The court believes that the lieutenant recklessly put herself in a situation of risk. Our legal system cannot protect recklessness. Our legal system, or rather, in this particular situation, the lieutenant put herself in a situation where there was a possible risk, and the risk became a reality. The lieutenant had ample opportunity to leave the vehicle before the risk configured or materialized, being the risk the suspect fleeing from the scene. Definitely, there was no kidnapping. We understand that consent was given and consent can be revoked, but the court will not protect the removal of consent after the lieutenant had already consented to put herself in a riskful and reckless situation. The court even asked itself the following question: if the lieutenant, or rather, were the lieutenant's actions considered a situation of entrapment? Rather, did the lieutenant entrap the defendant by placing herself in the vehicle when she knew that the defendant was going to escape? The court will not make any consideration in regards of whether this was or not entrapment, but it only shows how weak the kidnapping of a government employee charge in this specific situation was. With all of these considerations, then, court will be very brief. The defendant, Eija Ryoshi, for the charge of criminal threats, is found guilty. We also find the defendant, Eija Ryoshi, for the charge of reckless operation of a vehicle, guilty. For the charge of felony hit and run, the defendant is found guilty. For the charge of resisting arrest, the defendant is found guilty. For the charge of obstruction of justice, the defendant is found guilty. For the charge of failure to comply or identify the defendant is found guilty. For the charge of operating a vehicle with a suspended license, the defendant is found guilty. Sorry for that. For the charge of felony hit and run, the defendant is found not guilty. Please excuse the court. Finally, for the charge of kidnapping of a government employee, the defendant is found not guilty, and for the charge of evading an officer, the defendant is found guilty as well.